listening to Composites Weekly, the leading news and information podcast of the composites industry. And now your host, Jonathan Taylor.
All right, welcome back to another episode here of Composites Weekly, the industry's leading podcast show. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. This week's episode is brought to you by your friends over at Sanco Polymers. Sanco is one of the leading providers of innovative solutions and technologies to the polymer industry and has been for over 20 years. They are committed to serving customers with a wide assortment of polymers for all sorts of industrial, commercial, and military applications. You can find them by visiting their website today over at sancopolymers.com. Well, in today's episode, we're going to be discussing 3D printing and some of the technology as it continues to grow. I am very happy to have Avi Reichenthal. He is going to be joining me. He's one of the world's leading authorities on 3D printing. In 2014, Avi was named by Popular Mechanics as one of the top 25 makers who are reinventing the American dream, and was listed by Fortune magazine in 2013 as top 50 business leader. He's got an acclaimed TED Talk that we are going to be including on our show page this week. I really enjoyed watching that. That one video has garnered over 2.5 million views. He's also the former president, CEO, and director of 3D Systems for 12 years. Avi has built that company into a very formidable global 3D printing leader. Avi is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Exponential Works, an advisory and product development company, and the general partner of our crowd's Cognitive Ventures Fund. Avi holds several corporate leadership roles, including the chairman of Nano Dimensions, vice chairman of Technoplus, and chairman and co-founder of Nexa 3D. Avi, I know I've listed a whole lot of stuff, and you've got quite the resume. Thank you for coming on today to join us on this episode.
It's a real pleasure, Jonathan, and I apologize for the lengthy resume function of working, for decades and getting to an age in which one accumulates, things like this. But I guess most of all, it's a reflection of the times that we live in.
Absolutely.
We live in exponential times.
Yes.
There is a great deal of technological disruption that's afoot, and I'm just grateful to be part of this incredible convergence of technology, which I hope is going to generate some abundance and opportunity.
Tell us a little bit about your background. You were the former president, CEO, and director of 3D Systems for 12 years. Tell us a little bit about your background. Go as far back as you would like, but I'd be interested how you got into this field of 3D printing. I know it goes further back than many people really realize that are just getting into the field, but it sounds like you've been in it from the very beginning.
I joined 3D Systems in 2003. It wasn't exactly the beginning. The technology has been around already by the time that I joined for a couple of decades, but it was still in a fairly early nascent stage. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity and the privilege to figure out, how to mainstream it, how to democratize it, and how to expose the marketplace to additive manufacturing and the disruption and opportunities that it holds. I got involved with 3D Systems, quite serendipitously. I was, for more than 22 years, a senior executive with a company called Sealed Air Corp that was the inventor of the bubble wrap, the packaging material,
right,
and many, many other forms of plastic packaging and technology. And I was headhunted, quite frankly, to come and turn around a relatively small California company that had a product, had a technology that was very expensive and very complex in search of a marketplace. And I looked at the company for a while, and the entrepreneurial part of me instinctively understood that this could be a really, really, really disruptive technology. And the practical part of me understood that I may fail miserably because the company was kind of floundering, and 3D printing wasn't exactly a household name. Nobody really understood what it was all about.
I've watched your TED Talk. I watched your TED Talk, the one that you did. We're going to post a link to that. You kind of mentioned 3D printing, and you related it. I was very fascinated with how you used the analogy of
my grandfather.
Yes, your grandfather, who was a shoemaker. Yeah. And how that, we're kind of making how 3D printing, and I guess what I'm trying to do is maybe tie it in, how we're kind of coming back. Maybe 3D printing is leading us back to the local person who is, you had the shoe manufacturer, you had the watchmaker, you had the local entrepreneur, and it seems like, with modern manufacturing, things have exploded, and we've seen less and less of that. We've seen a lot of the small business owner be pushed out, but I think one of the things that I took away from your TED Talk is how 3D printing's the potential to disrupt the industry and to bring back the local business owner back into the fray with this technology is revolutionary.
There is no question, Jonathan, that one of the greatest powers of 3D printing is that it allows anybody to become a craftsman. And, as you know from my TED Talk, my grandfather was a shoemaker. And I grew up hearing stories about how he used to measure and cut and stitch and fit, and everything that he did was customized.
Right.
It was customized to fit because, as you know, no two fit are the same.
Yes.
We are not, as humans, we're not done in a mold.
Right.
And I think that one of the great tragedies of the Industrial Revolution is that it kind of took that away. We used to live in a hyper-local communities with lots of craftsmen and artisanal capabilities. And the Industrial Revolution took all that away and convinced everybody that we fit into standard sizes and standard products
right.
in everything that we do. With 3D printing, even though the actual craftsmanship muscles atrophied over the last 150 years, now if you have an idea and you have a virtual design, you can actually make it. You can manufacture it. And so it kind of, 3D printing unleashes the power of what I call digital craftsmanship and digital artisanalship. And with that, the opportunity to return to vibrant, hyper-local communities in which people can actually conceive, design, and make products and provide services in a way that will be bespoke, will be customized.
More efficiently, I might add, too, because they're focusing, it sounds like, they're focusing more from a digital standpoint. They're focusing their work on that, whereas most of the physical work that's being done, it will be so precise and so much more efficient. I think we were, right before the show, I mentioned a guest that we had on recently. He's an orthopedic surgeon, was talking about how exact as a surgeon, he can, or a orthopedic doctor, he can have orthopedic devices that are printed to exact dimensions by just running a patient through a CAT scan and getting the precise details, sending that to a printer and having that printed, and it's an exact match. It said 99% of the time it's an exact match for that, what they need. So precise and efficient, I guess you would say, but it is something that you're bringing to a person locally, and they focus their time on the digital aspect.
No, that's exactly right. And that level of personalization, whether it's for a medical device, like a full knee or hip replacement, where we kind of pioneered the workflow, what I call the digital thread that takes you from a CT scan or an MRI to precise modeling of the implant, but not just the implant, also all the surgical guides and the jigs and fixtures that go into the orthopedic surgery, kind of taking also the human skill variable out of it, because, when you have these jigs and fixtures that are also 3D printed as the surgical instruments, you make sure that the incision happens in the right place, that you drill the bone and so on. The same thing is going to happen in products, is happening in products. I mean, we already see that companies like Adidas is working with a company called Carbon to print customized athletic footwear. We see companies in dental aligners like Invisalign that completely revolutionized and disrupted the wire aligner in favor of clear aligners. We see the aerospace industry led by GE beginning to change serious parts in jet engines, starting with fuel nozzles and making those 3D printed. And in fact, my prediction is that in the next 3 years, something like 2/3 of new commercial and military aircraft will fly with 3D printed components. You mentioned surgery. My sense is that in the next few years, at least a quarter, if not more, of all surgeons will practice with 3D printed models and with personalized patient surgical procedures. And that almost every enterprise in the next 3 to 5 years will have some kind of internal edge organizations or startups that will be working day and night to figure out how to create new products and services that are based on 3D printing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things you mentioned in your TED Talk, people will ask you from time to time, how will 3D printing, how will it affect the manufacturer traditionally? And I like that your response was that you like the question you prefer is, how will 3D printing actually change our lives? It will change some of the dynamics, but what I find oftentimes is it's the same. I think it's kind of the same argument when people talk about robotics or AI, is that how will that displace, the American worker? How will that change manufacturing? I think the assumption is always that it'll be for the worse, but it always opens up new opportunities.
Absolutely, Jonathan. I mean, we have to look at these kinds of technologies really as collaborative technologies and technologies that will augment and enhance craftsmanship and manufacturing as we know it. And my sense is that in the next 5 to 10 years, 3D printing in and of itself will actually create jobs. It will create better jobs. It will allow human beings to be the best that they can be in terms of our ability to create, to make, to learn, to communicate, to follow our hobbies, and to create entirely new economies and experiences, not just for goods and services, but also in the field of food, in the field of healthcare, in the field of education. They're going to be, 3D printing is really an unstoppable force. It's a digital technology that is also rapidly benefiting from the convergence of other exponential technologies like infinite computing power in the cloud and ubiquitous connectivity and chip sensoring and the availability of AI, which makes designs much more organic and functional and sustainable. And all these technologies together really unleash and unlock the potential of 3D printing, which I believe to be truly unlimited.
You mentioned food. I have a hard time, and many of our listeners probably have a hard time envisioning 3D printed food, but we are seeing that. Is that? I mean, I know I've read articles of 3D printed pizzas and chocolates and
all of the above. In fact, to your point on pizzas, NASA is actually underwriting and sponsoring the pizza 3D printing project. There are quite a few other companies that think that they can revolutionize and reimagine hospitality in restaurants with 3D printed. And they're focusing more on texture, flavor, and geometries. And now there are several early stage companies that think that they can use 3D printing technology to actually create perfectly delicious proteins like steaks that may not focus so much on the geometry, but will certainly use 3D printing technology to enhance the sense that you're actually sinking your teeth into a delicious steak.
It really does sound, for many people, it sounds so sci-fi, but we've reached to the point where this technology is here, and it is fascinating.
It's here, and it's moving kind of to the, if you will, industrial strength level. In fact, here at Exponential Works, where we invest in some of the most promising early stage companies and help them kind of cross the chasm from an early stage company to a successful, scalable company. We have several companies here that are focusing on speed and materials because, bringing 3D printing to industrial strength means that also the throughput, the production capacity, has to meet or exceed traditional methods like injection molding,
right,
investment casting, and CNC machining. And so we have a company here called Nexa 3D that is breaking the speed barrier using photopolymeric resins and composites on the plastics side very, very successfully and very convincingly. We have another company in our Exponential Works portfolio called Next Factory that is doing the same by scaling polyamide nylon powders, which are ubiquitous, as you know, in automotive and in other fields. And so those are two companies that are doing it. We then, of course, are very involved with Nano Dimension, whom I know you had on your show.
Absolutely,
previously.
We did, yeah.
And Nano Dimension, as you know, is really electrifying additive manufacturing. It's adding all of the ingredients that you need to put smarts and intelligence, like encapsulated sensors and printed antennas and printed circuit boards and electrified geometries, which are part of what's around the corner, because by 2020, we will have something like 50 billion connected devices around us, and each one of them will require some kind of electrification. And then we have at Exponential Works also a company called Parameters, which is dealing with the input side of design and how do we optimize design for additive manufacturing by providing the generative computer design with artificial intelligence that will create lightweighting of products to the tune of 30 to 40%, enhance functionality, and make the entire workflow from design to manufacturing much more intelligent and automated by using AI and 3D printing to optimize designs, to make them more sustainable, and to make them beautiful, quite frankly.
I want to go back to Exponential Works. You are the chairman and CEO. I want to talk briefly about the company and how does, in terms of helping developers out there bring their product or moving a product idea to commercialization, what's the process of that? And how do you all as a company help or look and identify those developers or those budding entrepreneurs and help them get started? And if you could maybe go through the process of that.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I started Exponential Works with this dream of finding the best and brightest entrepreneurs, bringing the best companies here into our space, and starting by offering them the benefit of experience and resources. And my view was, in my nearly 4 decades in the workforce, I made plenty of mistakes.
Yes.
And, most of them I learned from, a few I made a few times. And there's no need for somebody that's starting a new business to make the same mistakes that I made. They ought to teach me some new ways.
Right, absolutely.
Or some new mistakes, right? So that was one of the premise. The other thing that we do is we give them the tools and the resources. And part of the resource is investments. So we actually invest money in our early stage companies, and then we help them find other investors. We also very quickly expose them to the marketplace and begin to think not just in terms of the product design and features, but what do you need to do to design a product and an experience that the market will value? So we open access to the various channels to market. We introduce our early stage entrepreneurs to their potential customers and resale channels. We work with them to prove the product first and to validate it with early adopters. And we have a network of much, much larger private equity and corporate companies that are interested in our early stage companies, that want to see them successful, that want access to their technology early, and in exchange, they're willing to give our early stage companies case studies and validation and sponsorship. So at the end, Exponential Works became an incredible ecosystem in which early stage companies come to grow and scale. Mature stage companies come to disrupt themselves from the edge to the core of the business and undertake a digital transformation. And we, in the middle, are guiding, advising, investing, and growing these companies. So it's the most fun I've had in many, many years. And we created an incredible concept and an incredible space that is growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, and it's to have your team, the knowledge and the experience from your perspective, working with them. I think that's truly a benefit to every company. You coming with your.
It's really interesting because we have assembled some incredible expertise and skills, the kind that would be very, very difficult for early stage companies to hire, but also for mature stage companies to hire. Talent is real scarce in this high-tech world that we live in. And we're really fortunate. We have the talent, but not just in technology. We have incredible intellectual property experience and services to give to our early-stage companies.
Absolutely.
We help them with their branding and marketing. We help them with go-to-market and business model innovation. How do I price, deliver? How do I make sure that I don't leave money on the table when I develop really great technology or a really great new 3D printer? How do I make sure that as the founder entrepreneur, I get my fair share of the profits so that I can continue to invest in my company? All these experiences and questions and advice we provide for our ecosystem because we want them to succeed, because most of them come into a new business with some core expertise either in technology or in marketing or in finance, but it's very seldom to find in a young company all the requisite experience.
Right.
We kind of compress their learning curve.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful that they have all of that experience. And you mentioned marketing. That's a very key. That's a key component in any business is getting the word out. You can have a great product, but if people don't know how to find you or know where you're located or know anything about you, it's futile. I mean, so you've really got to have that marketing.
Yeah, look, products don't sell themselves, as you well know.
Right.
And even the best products write narrative and branding and promotion, and increasingly nowadays, an experience and engagement between the customer and the company that provides it, and hopefully a long-lasting engagement in which the customers are thrilled, the company is easy to access and do business with, and every engagement, becomes memorable because it's good, not terrible because it's bad.
Right.
And learning the difference, learning how to develop a personality for the company that resonates with customers is oftentimes much harder than developing the technology.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to mention the website there, and that you can people can find that at exponentialworks.com. We'll be having a link to the website, and it is fascinating to time flies, and I would love to talk to you a little more about this, other things regarding your views on the future of 3D printing, the technology itself of printers, and the material side of things. But hey, maybe we can have you back on again at on a future episode to discuss those things. But it has been a pleasure, Avi, to bring your experience on the show today and have you share about your company and a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I would love to come back again and discuss the future of 3D printing. Stay tuned.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I want to let listeners know that you can find, again, that's Exponential Works. We'll be having a link on our show page. Again, we'll be having a link and also to the TED video, which I think everyone should check out. But he is Avi Reichenthal, and again, one of the world's leading authorities on 3D printing. Avi, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure, and we look forward to getting this episode out later in the week.
Thank you.